answer the questions. And so that was the spark. I would say my light bulb moment that went off, that maybe this is something I could do on the side to help young people better prepare for jobs.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things you do as well. You are also an adjunct professor. You are also an entrepreneur in several different ways. You juggle it all. I wonder, and you're also doing your PhD, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I know it's a lot, and it's funny because whenever I go for a new opportunity, they're looking at, okay, this, and that, and I have to say, okay, let's clear the slate and think about what I do in kind of genres, and that they're not all consistent. So there may be a semester where I'm not teaching, and then the next semester I'm teaching, or I'll take the summer off from one university to teach at a second university, because I do serve on adjunct at, I think, 3 universities now. So it is something worth juggling. But I look at it this way: we all have a lot on our plate. It's just that mine happens to be filled with education, academia, youth, and speaking. And so I'm single, I don't have any children, and I don't watch much TV. So those are the things I would prefer to do than watch television.
Yeah, well, that is great stuff. But I did want to be sure that you got full credit for who you are.
So thank you. Sure. I really appreciate that. I usually tell people, check out my LinkedIn profile. And then they're like, oh my goodness, you do so much other things. So I'm very fortunate and very blessed.
Right. So out of all that, you are in human resources, and you saw a lot of young people come through your way. And so really, is that how it all got started? That it was kind of conceived from there?
Yes. In fact, I'd say that was the spark. And so at that time, which, let me caveat, I don't recommend this, but those that I could not hire, I actually offered to meet them outside of work and give them input. So I used to meet them at the library. And at the time I was working on one of my master's degrees. And so the librarian would say, Natascha, where are all these people coming in here asking for you? They don't even go to school here. Right. And so then I had to tell her what I was doing. And she said to me, you know, that's career development. You belong in career development. And I didn't know what that was at the time. And thankfully, she set me up with an informational interview, which gave me the opportunity to sit down with the director of career development at that particular university to kind of learn what they do. And simultaneously to that, I had won Miss Black Rhode Island USA. And whenever you win a pageant, you need a platform. You need a cause that you want to champion. And I had selected youth career coaching as the cause I wanted to champion. And so with the schools pushing me in to start speaking as a title holder, that opened the door from the community grassroots perspective. And then having that opportunity to sit down with the director of career development, that opened up a job opportunity. And so it was those two combined with getting a call to speak at a youth summit. And they had asked me for a tax ID number. And I was like, let me get right back to you with that information. I didn't know what that was at the time. And it was in 2009. And so I've always had mentors. I believe so much in having mentors. And so I just called the mentor that I knew had a business, and he literally just said, call this attorney, call this accountant, and they set it all up, and I was in business. And what's so funny is the summit actually didn't even happen. It got canceled. Wow. And then when I said, oh my goodness, I have a business, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know. I just did this just to get this opportunity. And it evolved. It just evolved. It's like once that framework was set set and I was established as a legitimate business, then I really think it just blossomed. People just said, well, now we can pay you. Now you can get paid for this. And so it kind of scaled up from there.
Right. Now, to also clarify, you are also a certified career coach. And you would think that all the education that you have, that would be enough, that you wouldn't have any more proof to show people that, but you went ahead and got a certification in it.
I did. And a lot of people actually contact me about becoming a coach. And I do say weigh your experience. And there are plenty of individuals that have much experience that they can do this without a certification. They've been in human resources for years. They may have the what they call SHRM, the Society for HR Management certification.
Sure.
I mean, they may have multiple degrees, and even if they don't, they have years of experience. Sure. And so I took that into consideration. But I remembered there's a movie, and in this movie, I won't name it, but in the movie, this young man is playing the drums, and they find out that he cannot read sheet music, and he can only play by ear. And I remembered that because it's like, you want to master your craft. And so whether or not you need the certification, it's a kind of an asterisk that I take what I do very seriously. And if somebody took the time to create a certification program, there's probably some stuff in there I need to know that can help me be a better career coach. So I did. I looked for different programs. I found one that I thought worked for me as far as a study at home. It was a 1-year-long type program. It fit into my budget, and I just went for it.
Yeah, it's an assurance for a lot of people to say, they'd be able to point to that you've done the work if the experience isn't there. So, and there's a lot of ways to get that experience, but that's neither here or there. I thought it was just very interesting is that with all the education you have, you went to the extra length to make sure that you had the assurance. And probably parents would like to have that. More so than adults, because parents are very cautious these days, probably more cautious than ever, to make sure that their son or daughter is going to be taken care of with what they need and not a lot of frivolous information or time suck just for the person to get money.
Right. I definitely agree with that. So I try to keep up as much as I can with the industry changes. And I hope actually to one day even create my own certification program underneath the Youth Career Coach umbrella. And so that is one of my future aspirations.
Wow. That's excellent. Okay. So you've coached and mentored adults. You coach and mentor teens. What's the difference for you?
That's a really good question. I think about more so the similarities than the differences, which is very interesting to me because a lot of times I'll work with adults that still haven't, or maybe they got so caught up in life. Children, family, finances, moving, jobs, losses of loved ones, that they really haven't taken some time to think about who they are, where they are, and how they even got to where they are, because life happens so quickly, and what they want to do next. And so most of the time, I find that a lot of adults don't have a vision statement. They haven't really mapped out a lot of their goals. They haven't really put what I call a resource library together, which is basically your personal advisory board, what tools and resources you need to accomplish some of your goals. I find that unique on both sides. I think the difference could just be what the variables are. So if a teen or an adult want to move up professionally, the teen is more so, or the young adult is more so focused on how they feel about it, where they're going to live, how much money they're going to make, where does this put them in their future. And they don't have to really be concerned with the adults thinking about my spouse. I can't relocate. So, Natascha, I need to stay in this particular area. Or I can't let my current job know that I'm searching. So how do we do this behind the scenes? How do I build my network behind the scenes? And so I think that there's some unique variables with adults based on where they are professionally, with family and income and things of that nature. But with young people, it's a little different. But I find confidence on both sides is very interesting. I think that adults and young professionals could use a boost in confidence and self-esteem. I find that a lot of adults, the older they get, start to feel like, well, what can I do now? I'm not really keeping up. Like, how am I going to catch up with this? You know, should I go back into the job market? And things that other people would think are small, like how they look at this age. Should I keep my gray hair at this age? Okay, I need to keep up with technology. There's a lot of unique variables. And what I have found as I've been assessing my own business model is I'm always in awe when I get adults that want to work with me and executives versus young people. It's so unique. And I'll say, I'm clearly the youth career coach, but you want to hire me. And I always ask them why. And it's usually they need the energy. They feel like I bring that energy, that I believe they can do anything and they need to be pushed. Or they like how I do branding and they want to rebrand their image and what they look like online. So it's always some unique variables that I'm intrigued by when I get to work with adults.
Yeah, I think people, if they know and like you, they like you for other variables and intangibles that you bring, not so much the certification or what you've labeled yourself. So if you like someone, you like someone. There's no question. It's sort of like musicians are hired every day. You know, even though they're not a jazz musician, like Eric Clapton's not a jazz musician, but yet he's played on jazz records and blues records and all that.
So
that's the same thing. People like you and like what you do and like what you bring. That person's already envisioned what value you're going to bring, and that's very important. And I think that kind of segues a little bit too into that's something that teens can learn a little bit quicker than adults, I find, because they're much more open-minded. They have not narrowed the way that they're going to learn. But at the same time, they always change their minds at rapid paces that are very hard to keep up with. So, how do you handle the teens that change probably quicker than when we were teens?
That is so true.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm just thinking about even the teens moving up into the early 20s.
Yeah.
The phone calls, and in fact, some emails that I just got on my LinkedIn from former students, that recent graduates, which I consider, let's say 1 to 3 year mark, already itching. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm ready to leave this job. I'm looking for another one. I'm like, wait, you just took it 9 months ago.
Right.
Like, let's scale that back. And so that is an ongoing problem. But what I have been encouraging the students to do is, it takes time to make an informed decision. Yes, and so I often say, when students come to me and they're like, I'm not sure what I want to do, and they're really wishy-washy, I say you're wishy-washy because you don't have enough data, and you don't have enough data to make an informed decision.
Right.
So you would be very clear in knowing what you wanted to do next if you had enough data. So I usually encourage them to kind of fall back just a little bit and keep in mind that, yes, I do want to change, but let's assess why. Let me just get you to dig a little bit on the why. Is it the location? Is it because you're not getting along with your manager? Let's figure out why that is. Let's talk about what I like to coach my students on is reverse management, that they're not just managing you, but you're also managing your manager. And how do you do that? And I usually walk them through that process, and I try to problem solve so that they're comfortable in the environment that they're currently in. And then we set up steps to research, to network, to attend events, things of that nature on what they think they want to do next. Because by the time they finish doing my homework, my assignments, the coffee meetups, attending the events, usually they've calmed down and they're like, oh, okay, well, I could kind of do this already at my current job, but if I want to make this jump, I actually need to learn this right where I'm at first, because I don't even qualify to apply for that opportunity. So I like to kind of educate first and pull and problem solve just to calm everyone down, and then assign them different tasks, which then prove to them how quickly they're actually able to move to the next opportunity. I don't decide for them, but once they do all my homework, then they eventually figure it out.
So in your estimation, do they understand value, and are they able to grasp? And I ask that knowing that I have two young adult men that I've raised, and I understand, sometimes that value doesn't matter in as much as what they see as being comfortable. So, if they're good at something, they don't necessarily want to use that for that particular job. Is that switch kind of hard to navigate with them, being that, again, they want to change all the time and their minds change all the time?
It definitely is. I don't have a perfect solution for that, because there could be a case where a young person doesn't want to kind of do the research and see the value in where they currently are before they make a jump. But, and this has happened. I remember one young man that I was working with, he was in between college, and then he jumped out to do Year Up, which is like this in-between kind of nonprofit organization. And he did Year Up, and he was big on real estate. I'm going to be a big mogul in real estate. I mean, he was just gung-ho. I couldn't tell him anything. I tried.
Right.
We had multiple coaching sessions.
Sure.
And, it didn't work out in his favor. It didn't. It started off hot because he was doing that while he was in his other job. And he just kind of got that bug and wanted to jump out. And so it did not work out in the end. And he lost a lot of good contacts. That was a really good job he had in a finance firm. And so that happens. And when it does, I say, well, lessons will be learned. I've had to learn some hard lessons as well. So, but I totally understand with value. I think that on the reverse side, it would behoove employers, as they're navigating this millennial generation coming up, Gen Z, that they seem, some, I don't know, they're seeming to grasp the idea of what it takes to hire a millennial and to keep a millennial there.
Yeah.
And I remembered that now there's such a big boost in having what they call rotational jobs, where these young people, they're in one position for 6 months, 10 months, maybe a year, and then they switch to another one. And so a lot of companies are trying to do that in order to keep this generation, because a lot of times they do have multiple interests. And I know I studied 3 different majors in undergrad. So I tell them, trust you me, I can relate. However, what you do, which is probably why I have multiple lanes, because and I try to tell them, you're not going to find everything in one position. So say you find one skill set or two skill sets in the job, then maybe you sit on an advisory board for the Boys and Girls Club because you love sports and you want to be in this sports lane. And so you start doing stuff with them in the community and build your name up that way. I've had individuals that wanted to make a transition with no experience, and I'll say, well, the National Urban League, the NAACP, Young Professionals Network, they have committees. I used to be the chair of labor. I used to be the chair of education. And that's how I pleased that side of what I wanted to do, even though at the time I was working in finance. So I think that when we're working with these young people that have multiple interests, let's not negate that. Let's not throw that out the window. Let's look at them in lanes and see how can we fit them. This will be your job. This will be your community service lane. This will be going back to your alma mater and being an assistant coach for the football team seasonally. So there's a way we can kind of work with that.
Yeah, I think what we probably the shift that we need to make, those of us who are a little bit older, because I guess we learned from you millennials that success looks a whole lot differently, and it's not an end game, so to speak. It's not a destination. It's always a journey, and we should allow for that as Generation Z becomes a little bit more prominent in our wave space.
Right. And I'm borderline. Okay, I'm like millennial Gen X. Okay, I'm like right here.
That's all right.
Okay,
all
so
right.
I get thank you.
Yeah, we're going to give you the millennial spot right
no.
now.
I'm on the line. I know. I was in a marketing research. I was in a marketing research event, and I was like, "No, I'm Gen X," and the lady's like, "I do this for a living, and I just need you to know that you're considered a millennial." And I was like, I refuse. I just refuse.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that because there is a little bit of old soul that's there. That's great, and I think
yes.
I think that's what people give that.
My dad is turning 75 next week, and today's actually my grandmother's birthday. She's 94, and my brothers are well in their 50s. So that's where that comes from.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess I know it because I see your posts on Facebook all the time, and I've gotten to know you. We've talked several times before, so this is nothing new, except for those who are watching. But yeah, she is kind of a bit of an old soul, so that makes all the sense in the world. Just so that we're closing out here, I just want to be sure to thank you so much for your time, because it's hard to catch you, dude. I mean, you are always on the run, and then the time shifts. It's like, man, I've had executive clients, and they don't change as much as you do.
I'm so sorry. Oh my God, it does. I tell people I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing over here. I'm trying to, I'm in a new territory in the Washington, D.C. area.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of ground to cover out here.
Yeah. And when I worked in the federal sector, one of my clients was a colonel, and he just said, I don't have time to change times. And it's like, that was kind of profound. I don't have time to change.
I like that.
Yeah, and I thought about that for a long time. It's like, I don't have time to change time. It was just that, when you get to that level, you don't have time to kind of soften people up for the blow. You just hit them, they'll rebound a little bit later.
Wow, I'll remember that when I get to that level.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to get to that level, and I'm much older
and I'm behind
you. But how can people engage your information, and how can they find you online or elsewhere?
Sure. You are welcome to visit either one of my websites, theyouthcareercoach.com or NataschaSaunders.com. And as you see, it's spelled with an S and a C. Also on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. So you could definitely reach out.
Well, thank you so much for being part of the Voice of Job Seekers, and appreciate your time. Just want to let everyone else know that this coming week, we're not going to be publishing a show. So by the time this airs, the week of July 4th, or the week previous to July 4th, that'll be the last show, and they will continue the following week on the 12th. And the 12th and the 19th and 26th are the last 3 shows for the season before we take hiatus. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us. Feel free to go to thevoiceofjobseekers.com, or you can email me at mark@thevoiceofjobseekers.com. You can also call or text 708-365-9822 if you have any inquiries at all. In the meantime, thank you, and you all have a great week.